Hello, and welcome. Before we begin, I need to make something very clear. Everything I share with you today is general information only. It is not personal financial advice. Your situation is unique. Always speak with a licensed financial advisor before making any major financial decisions. Now, with that said, let's dive in. Take a breath with me. A deep breath. Because I know what's weighing on you right now. I know the question that keeps you awake at night. The question that makes your chest tight and your mind race. Should I sell my home? Or if you're renting, the opposite question haunts you. Will I ever be able to afford a place of my own? Am I too late? Have I failed? These aren't just financial questions. They're deeply emotional. Your home isn't just bricks and mortar. It's where you raised your family. It's where you celebrated birthdays and Christmases. It's where you feel safe. It's the biggest asset you've ever owned, or the biggest dream you never achieved. And now, as you approach retirement, or find yourself already in it, you're being forced to make a calculation, a cold, hard calculation about whether owning a home in retirement makes financial sense, or whether renting might actually be smarter. The thought terrifies you. If you own your home, selling feels like giving up, like admitting defeat, like losing your identity. What will your kids think? What will your friends say? Where will you go? Will you be safe? Will you regret it? If you're renting, the fear is different but just as real. How will you afford rent on the age pension? What if the landlord sells? What if they raise the rent again? Will you end up homeless? Will you die in some tiny flat with nothing to leave your children? I understand. I understand that this isn't just about numbers. This is about security. This is about dignity. This is about your future and your legacy and your peace of mind. But here's what I want you to know. The answer isn't the same for everyone. There is no universal right answer. What works for your neighbor might be wrong for you. What your kids think you should do might not align with your reality. Today, we're going to walk through this together. The history, the numbers, the emotions, the trade-offs, the real stories of real people facing this exact decision. And by the end, you'll have clarity. You'll know what questions to ask. You'll know what factors matter most. You'll know how to make this decision for yourself, not based on fear or shame, but based on truth. So let's begin. Let's talk about what it really means to rent versus own in retirement in Australia today. Now, let me take you back to the Australia many of you grew up in, the Australia where home ownership wasn't just common, it was expected. It was the Australian dream. Do you remember? In the 1950s, 60s, 70s, owning your own home was what you did. You left school, you got a job, you saved a deposit, you bought a modest house in the suburbs, you paid it off over 20 or 30 years, and by the time you retired, you owned it outright. That home was your retirement plan. You didn't need a huge superannuation balance because you had no rent or mortgage to pay. The age pension, combined with no housing costs, was enough. You lived simply but comfortably. You felt secure. And when you died, you left that home to your children. It was your legacy, your gift, the thing that helped them get ahead. Home ownership in Australia used to sit around 70%. 70% of Australians owned their homes. That was normal. That was the social fabric. But something changed. Over the past 30 years, home ownership rates have been falling, especially among younger Australians, but increasingly among people in your age group too. Why? House prices exploded. In the 1980s, the average house might have cost 3 or 4 times the average annual wage. Today, in major cities, it's 10 or 12 times the average wage or more. Houses became unaffordable for many people, especially if you had a financial setback, a divorce, a job loss, an illness. Meanwhile, wages stagnated, the cost of living increased. Superannuation didn't exist for much of your working life, so many people your age don't have large balances. And defined benefit pensions disappeared, replaced by the employer-funded super system that puts all the risk on you. So here we are. You're over 50, maybe you own a home, but you're wondering if you can afford to keep it. Maybe you're renting and you're terrified about your future. Maybe you're somewhere in between, with a mortgage you're struggling to pay off before retirement. And the emotional weight of this is crushing, because Australian culture still tells you that home ownership is success, that renting is failure, that if you don't own property, you've somehow done something wrong. But the financial reality is more complex. Let me be very clear about something. Owning your home outright in retirement is still, for most people, the best financial position to be in. If you can get there, if you can pay off your mortgage and hold on to your home, that's wonderful. That's security. But that's not everyone's reality. Some of you will reach retirement with a mortgage still outstanding. Some of you will own a home that's too big, too expensive to maintain, or in the wrong location. Some of you will be renting and wondering if buying now, even at this age, makes sense. And here's what I need you to understand. Renting in retirement is not the disaster you think it is. Not anymore. Not if you plan properly. Let me explain. Let's talk about the technical side of this. Let's break down what it actually costs to own versus rent in retirement. I'll keep this as simple as possible, but you need to understand the numbers to make an informed decision. First, let's talk about owning. When most people think about owning their home in retirement, they think no mortgage means no housing costs. I'm free. But that's not true. Even when you own your home outright, you still have costs. Council rates, water rates, insurance, maintenance and repairs, utilities, strata fees if you're in a unit, potentially land tax depending on the value and your circumstances. Let's put some ballpark figures on this, understanding they vary wildly depending on where you live. Council rates might be $2,000 to $3,000 a year, water rates another several hundred. Home and contents insurance, maybe $1,000 to $2,000. Maintenance and repairs, this is the big one. A general rule is to budget about 1% of your home's value per year for maintenance. If your home is worth $600,000, that's $6,000 a year. Some years you'll spend nothing. Other years you'll need a new roof or a new hot water system, or the plumbing will fail. If you're in a unit, strata fees can be anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 a year or more, depending on the complex. Add it all up, if you own a standalone house worth $600,000, you might be looking at $10,000 to $15,000 a year in holding costs. If you're in a unit, potentially more if strata fees are high. That's not nothing. That's over $250 a week. That's money you need to have, either from the age pension, from super drawdowns, or from other investments. Now let's talk about renting. Rent obviously varies enormously depending on where you live. In regional areas, you might find something modest for $250 to $300 a week. In major cities, more like $400 to $600 a week or higher for a decent place. Let's use an example. Say you're renting a 2-bedroom unit in a regional area for $300 a week. That's $15,600 a year. But that's pretty much your only housing cost. The landlord pays the rates, the insurance, the major repairs. You pay rent and utilities. That's it. Compare that to owning. If your holding costs are $12,000 to $15,000 a year for a property you own, and rent is $15,000 to $16,000, they're surprisingly similar. Ah, but you say, when I own, I have an asset. When I rent, I'm throwing money away. Let's examine that. Yes, when you own, you have an asset, but that asset is illiquid. You can't easily access the wealth locked in your home unless you sell, downsize, or set up a reverse mortgage. And that asset doesn't generate income, it just sits there. Meanwhile, if you sold your home and invested the proceeds, that money could generate income, could generate a lot of income, depending on how much your home is worth. Here's an example. Let's say you own a home worth $700,000. You sell it. After selling costs, you net around $650,000. You invest that money conservatively. Even at a modest 4 to 5% return per year, you're generating $26,000 to $32,000 in investment income annually. Now you're paying rent of, say, $16,000 a year, but you're earning $30,000 from your investments. You're actually ahead by $14,000 a year. Plus, you have access to your capital if you need it for aged care, medical expenses, or emergencies. That's the calculation that surprises people. Owning your home feels safer, and emotionally it is. But financially, especially if you have a valuable property in an expensive area, selling and renting while investing the proceeds can leave you better off. Now let's talk about Centrelink, because this is where things get really important. The age pension has two tests, the income test and the assets test. Whichever gives you the lower pension is the one that applies to you. Here's the key thing. Your family home, the home you live in, is exempt from the assets test. Let me say that again. If you own and live in your home, it doesn't count as an asset for age pension purposes. A $2 million mansion and a $200,000 unit are treated exactly the same. Both are exempt. But if you sell your home and invest the money, that money becomes an assessable asset. It counts towards the assets test. And if you have too much in assessable assets, your pension reduces or disappears entirely. The asset thresholds change regularly, so check Services Australia for current figures. But generally, a single homeowner can have assessable assets up to a certain threshold before their pension starts reducing. A single non-homeowner, someone who rents, gets a higher threshold. The system recognizes that renters need more assets because they don't have a home. But even with that higher threshold, if you sell a valuable home and suddenly have $600,000 or $700,000 in investments, you might lose some or all of your age pension. This is critical. You need to understand the Centrelink implications before you make any decisions about selling. Now let's talk about reverse mortgages and equity release, because some people think I'll keep my home and access the equity through a reverse mortgage. A reverse mortgage lets you borrow against your home's value. You don't make repayments. The debt, plus compound interest, is repaid when you sell the home or pass away. It can be a useful tool to access funds while staying in your home. But the costs are high. Interest rates on reverse mortgages are typically higher than standard home loans, and because the interest compounds over time, the debt can grow significantly. You can end up owing far more than you borrowed, eating into the equity you wanted to leave to your children. Reverse mortgages can work in specific situations, but they're not a magic solution, and they're definitely not something to enter into lightly. All right, so those are the technical pieces. Holding costs of ownership, rent versus investment returns, Centrelink implications, equity release options. None of this is simple, but you needed to hear it because the decision between renting and owning in retirement isn't just emotional, it's deeply financial, and you need to understand both sides to make the right choice for you. Now let's talk about the pros and cons. Let's lay them out clearly, because both renting and owning have genuine advantages and genuine disadvantages in retirement. First, the advantages of owning your home in retirement. Number 1, security. You can't be evicted. You can't have your rent raised. You're not at the mercy of a landlord. You know you have a roof over your head for as long as you live. That emotional security is priceless for many people. Number 2, stability. You're not moving every few years. You're in your community, your doctor, your pharmacy, your friends, your routine. All of it stays the same. That stability matters more as you age. Number 3, control. You can renovate, you can paint the walls, you can have pets, you can make the space truly yours. No one is telling you what you can and can't do. Number 4, legacy. When you die, your home becomes part of your estate. Your children inherit it. For many people, that's important. It's a way to help the next generation. Number 5, Centerlink benefits. Because your home is exempt from the assets test, you might receive a higher age pension than if you sold and had the cash in investments. Number 6, inflation protection. As rents increase over time, you're insulated. Your holding costs increase, but generally more slowly than rents. Those are powerful advantages. Now, the disadvantages of owning your home in retirement. Number 1, illiquidity. Your wealth is locked up. If you need money for aged care, medical costs, or emergencies, you can't easily access it without selling or borrowing. Number 2, maintenance burden. As you age, maintaining a home becomes harder, physically and financially. That garden you loved at 60 might be a nightmare at 75. That big house might become overwhelming. Number 3, location lock. Maybe your home is far from your kids. Maybe it's no longer near services you need. Maybe the area has changed and you don't feel safe anymore. But selling and moving is stressful and expensive. Number 4, opportunity cost. The money tied up in your home isn't earning you income. If your home is worth a lot, you might actually be better off financially by selling, downsizing, or renting and investing the difference. Number 5, emotional burden. Some people feel trapped in their homes. It's too big, too empty, too full of memories, but they feel like they can't sell because society says you have to own. Now, let's talk about the advantages of renting in retirement. Number 1, flexibility. You can move easily, closer to family, closer to services, to a better climate, to a cheaper area. You're not tied down. Number 2, no maintenance. The landlord handles repairs. The hot water system breaks? Not your problem. The roof leaks? Not your bill. That's liberating, especially as you get older. Number 3, lower upfront capital needed. If you don't own a home, you can keep more of your savings in accessible, income-generating investments. Number 4, potential for better lifestyle. Maybe you sell your expensive city home, move to a cheaper regional area, rent something modest, and suddenly you have $200,000 or $300,000 extra to invest. That generates income. You can travel. You can live well. Number 5, downsizing without selling costs. If your needs change, you just move to a smaller place. No real estate agent fees, no stamp duty. And now, the disadvantages of renting in retirement. Number 1, insecurity. The landlord can sell, they can decide to move back in, they can raise the rent, you could be forced to move, potentially multiple times. That's stressful and exhausting. Number 2, ongoing cost. Rent never stops. Even if you own nothing else, you need to keep paying rent. Every week, every month, forever. That's scary when you're on a fixed income. Number 3, no asset to leave. When you die, there's no house to pass on. For some people, that feels like failure. Number 4, potential discrimination. Some landlords discriminate against older tenants. They worry about stability, health issues, or death. It's illegal, but it happens. Number 5, less control. You're limited in what you can do to the property. You need permission for modifications. You can't always have pets. It's not truly yours. So, there it is. Both options have real pros and cons. Neither is universally better. It depends on your finances, your health, your family situation, your values, and your personality. Let me tell you about Bruce and Jenny. Bruce and Jenny are in their late 60s. They've been married for 40 years. They own a home in one of Melbourne's outer suburbs, a nice 3-bedroom house with a big backyard. They bought it in the 1990s for $200,000. It's now worth about $800,000. They paid off the mortgage 10 years ago. They were so relieved. Finally, security. But here's the problem. Their superannuation balances are low. Combined, they have about $300,000. They worked in industries that didn't pay well, and super wasn't compulsory for much of their careers. They're both on the age pension. Combined, they receive around $40,000 a year. Plus, they draw down a bit from their super each year, maybe another $10,000. So their total annual income is about $50,000. Their holding costs for the house are about $14,000 a year. Rates, insurance, maintenance. That leaves them with $36,000 for everything else. Food, petrol, utilities, health costs. It's tight, really tight. They can't travel, they can't help their grandkids. They're constantly worried about money. And the house is becoming a burden. The garden is too much work. Repairs keep popping up. Last year, the roof needed work, $5,000. It nearly broke them. Their financial advisor sat them down and showed them the numbers. If they sold the house, netted $750,000 after costs, invested it conservatively, they could generate around $30,000 a year in investment income. Combined with their age pension, that's $70,000 a year total, a 40% increase in income. They could rent a nice two-bedroom unit closer to their daughter for $400 a week. That's $21,000 a year, still less than the $30,000 their investments would generate. They'd be ahead, significantly ahead. Plus, they'd have access to $750,000 if they ever needed it for aged care or emergencies. But Bruce and Jenny were terrified. Selling their home felt like giving up, like admitting they'd failed. What would people think? It took them a year to make the decision, but eventually they sold. They moved into a lovely unit 10 minutes from their daughter. Modern, easy to maintain, a small courtyard instead of a huge garden. And you know what? They're happier. They're less stressed, they have more money, they can afford to take their grandkids out. They went on a cruise last year. They're not constantly worrying about repairs. Yes, they miss the old house sometimes, the memories, the space, but overall, their quality of life improved dramatically. Now here's the other side. Let me tell you about Margaret. Margaret is 72. She's widowed. She rented her whole life. Her late husband had a good job, but they moved around a lot for work. They never settled long enough to buy. And then he passed away suddenly at 65. No life insurance, small super balance. Margaret receives the age pension as a non-homeowner, which is slightly higher than for homeowners. She has about $150,000 in savings. She rents a one-bedroom unit for $320 a week. Her income from the pension is around $27,000 a year. Her rent is $16,640. That leaves her with just over $10,000 for everything else, about $200 a week. It's brutally tight. She's terrified the landlord will sell, terrified the rent will increase. She's already had to move twice in the past 5 years for those exact reasons. She feels vulnerable. She feels like she failed. She has nothing to leave her children. Margaret's situation is genuinely difficult. She doesn't have enough assets to buy property now. Even in a regional area, she'd struggle. And with limited super, she can't generate enough investment income to make renting comfortable. For Margaret, the lack of homeownership is a real problem. She needed to have owned, or she needed significantly more in super to make renting work financially. These are two very different stories. Bruce and Jenny, selling and renting worked beautifully. Margaret, renting is a struggle. The difference? Capital. Bruce and Jenny had $800,000 in home equity that they turned into income-generating investments. Margaret had almost nothing. That's the key insight. Renting in retirement can work well, but only if you have sufficient capital invested to generate income to cover the rent and living expenses. If you're renting with minimal savings, it's hard, very hard. All right, let's talk strategy. Let's talk about how you figure out what's right for you and what steps you can take. Step 1. Calculate your total financial position. Sit down and write it out. What is your home worth? What do you owe on your mortgage, if anything? What's your total superannuation balance? What other savings or investments do you have? What's your current income from all sources? Be brutally honest. Get your home professionally valued, check your super balances online, add it all up. Step 2, calculate your current expenses. How much do you spend each year on everything? Housing costs, food, transport, utilities, insurance, health, entertainment, everything. Track it for 3 months if you're not sure. Most people underestimate their expenses. Step 3, project your future income. If you're not yet retired, what will your income be when you stop working? Age pension? Super drawdown? Other investments? Use online calculators. The Services Australia website has age pension estimators. Superannuation fund websites have retirement calculators. Get a realistic picture of what you'll be living on. Step 4, model both scenarios. Scenario 1, you keep your home. What are your annual holding costs? What's your total income minus those costs? Can you live comfortably on what's left? Scenario 2, you sell your home. What would you net after selling costs? If you invested that, what income would it generate? What would rent cost in an area you'd want to live? What's your total income minus rent? Can you live more comfortably? Run the numbers honestly. Step 5, consider the Centrelink implications. If you sell your home, how will that affect your age pension? Will you lose some or all of it because of the assets test? This is crucial. Use the Services Australia Financial Information Service. It's free. They can help you understand how different scenarios affect your entitlements. Don't guess. Get accurate information. Step 6. Think about your health and age. How healthy are you? Can you maintain your current home? Will you be able to in 5 or 10 years? If you're 75 and struggling with stairs, maybe downsizing now makes sense, regardless of the pure financial calculation. If you're 60 and fit, you might have more flexibility. Step 7. Consider your family and support network. Where are your kids, your friends, your support system? If you're isolated in your current home, maybe moving closer to family, even if it means renting, improves your quality of life significantly. Geography matters. Step 8. Talk to professionals. Speak with a financial advisor who specializes in retirement planning, not someone trying to sell you products, someone who charges a fee for advice and puts your interests first. Speak with an accountant about tax implications. Speak with a real estate agent about realistic sale prices and market conditions. Get expert input. Step 9. Consider middle ground options. Maybe the answer isn't stay or sell entirely. Maybe you downsize, sell the big house, buy a smaller unit or townhouse, and bank the difference. Maybe you move to a cheaper area, sell in the expensive city, buy outright in a regional area, and have money left over. There are options between the two extremes. Step 10. Trust your gut. After you've done the research, run the numbers, sought advice, you need to make a decision. And part of that decision is emotional. If keeping your home means you'll be financially stressed but emotionally at peace, maybe that's right for you. If selling means you'll be financially secure but emotionally uncomfortable, maybe you need to work through that discomfort. There's no perfect answer. There's only the right answer for you. Let me talk to you about something important now. Let me talk about the emotional side of this decision. Because I can give you all the numbers in the world. I can show you spreadsheets and projections and calculations. But at the end of the day, this decision is about more than money. Your home represents your identity, your success, your safety, your memories. Selling it, or accepting that you'll never own one, feels like failure. But I want to challenge that. You are not your home. Your worth as a person is not determined by whether you own property. You are not a failure if you rent. You are not giving up if you sell. You are making a smart, strategic decision based on your current reality. The generation before you, they had it easier in some ways. Houses were cheaper, jobs were more secure, pensions were guaranteed. They could work one job their whole life and retire comfortably as homeowners. That was their context. That was their reality. Your reality is different. You've lived through recessions, restructures, divorces, health crises, whatever your personal challenges have been. You've done the best you could with what you had. And now you're making the best decision you can for your future. That's not failure. That's wisdom. That's courage. If selling your home means you can live with less financial stress, travel a bit, help your grandkids, sleep at night without worrying about money, then selling is the right choice. It's not giving up. It's choosing quality of life. If keeping your home means you feel secure, even if money is tighter, and that security is worth more to you than extra cash, then keeping it is the right choice. It's not being stubborn, it's knowing what matters most to you. The key is being honest with yourself, not making decisions based on what other people think, not making decisions based on shame or pride, but based on what will actually make your life better. Your children might have opinions, your friends might have opinions. Ignore them. This is your life, your retirement, your decision. And whatever you choose, you can make it work. You can find a way to live with dignity, with joy, with purpose, whether you own or rent. Because here's the truth. The happiest retirees aren't necessarily the wealthiest ones. They're the ones who've found peace with their circumstances, who've let go of regret, who've stopped comparing themselves to others, who've decided to enjoy what they have instead of mourning what they don't. You can be that person. You can choose peace. Let me leave you with this thought. You're in what I call the third act of your life. The first act was growing up, learning, discovering yourself. The second act was building, your career, your family, your responsibilities. And now you're in the third act. This act is about something different. It's not about accumulating anymore. It's not about proving yourself. It's not about what society expects. It's about living well. It's about joy. It's about connection. It's about peace. And the question of renting versus owning is really a question about what will help you live that third act most fully. For some of you, that means staying in the home you love, tending your garden, hosting Christmas, feeling rooted. For others, it means letting go, simplifying, moving somewhere new, creating space for adventure and flexibility and ease. Neither is wrong. What would be wrong is staying paralyzed by fear. Staying stuck because you're too scared to make a change, even though you know deep down something needs to shift. What would be wrong is making a decision based on shame. Selling because you feel like you have to, not because it's right for you. Or refusing to sell because you're afraid of what people will think. Your third act belongs to you. You get to write this chapter however you want. So I want you to think about what that looks like. Not what it should look like, not what it looked like for your parents, but what it actually looks like for you. Do you want to stay in your home, even if money is tight, because it brings you peace? Do that. Do you want to sell, move somewhere smaller or rent, and have more financial breathing room? Do that. Do you want to downsize but stay in your area? Do that. Do you want to move to the coast or the country and start fresh? Do that. There is no wrong answer as long as it's your answer, as long as you've thought it through, as long as you've sought advice, as long as you're making the decision from a place of clarity, not panic. And once you've made that decision, let go of the guilt, let go of the doubt, let go of worrying about what everyone else thinks. You've lived 50, 60, 70 years on this earth. You've earned the right to make choices that serve you. So make them, and then get on with the business of living, of enjoying these years, of spending time with people you love, of doing things that bring you joy. Because that's what the third act is really about. Not how much money you have, not whether you own or rent, but whether you're living fully, whether you're at peace, whether you're grateful for what you have instead of bitter about what you don't. That's the real retirement equation, and I believe you can solve it. Thank you for listening today. I hope this has given you clarity. I hope it's given you permission to make the choice that's right for you, whatever that choice may be. Remember, everything I've shared today is general information only. It is not personal financial advice. Please speak with a licensed financial advisor, an accountant, and Services Australia before making any major decisions about your home or your retirement. But whatever you decide, know this: you are not alone. You are not a failure. You are not too old or too late or too anything. You are someone who is navigating a complex financial landscape with courage and honesty, and that deserves respect. Your home, whether you own it or rent it, is just a building. What matters is the life you build inside it. So build a good one. Take care, be kind to yourself, and I'll speak with you again soon.